here today. This is for the summer reading challenge. Who has done the summer reading challenge?
I'm not finished.
You're not finished, but are you gonna finish? Yeah, then raise your hand. If you plan to finish the summer reading challenge, raise your hand. Who has already finished the summer reading challenge? Well done. Oh my gosh.
Me.
Yeah? And you know the theme this year? What's the theme this year? Do you know?
Ready, set, read.
Ready, set, read. What does that mean? Does that mean like, it means it's like you're racing, right? So you're doing ready, set, and you're going to race and read, and you're going to finish before school starts. So if you haven't finished yet, please finish as soon as you can. School is around the corner. I know everyone's very upset about that, but we still have a few more weeks of summer left, so you have a few more weeks for the summer reading challenge. For moms and dads and older brothers and sisters, grandparents, carers, whoever, don't forget to check the summer brochure. If you Google Newham summer brochure, all of the library activities are on there. Every library has at least 2 or 3 things every single day. So there's something for every day for the kids to do, and then you won't be bored this summer. But today, I'm going to introduce to you Cheryl Diane Parkinson, the author of Carrie Ann Fights to Stay in the Game, Last Girl In. And this book is really interesting because it's about a girl from Jamaica who wants to play cricket. And that's not very usual, is it? So we're going to have Cheryl talk to us about her writing, about cricket, about sports, about Jamaica, about anything she wants to talk to us about. And then at the end, we will take questions. There is also for mom and dad, grandparents, older brothers, sisters, siblings. The books will be on sale for £5 afterwards. If you're interested, they will be at this table, card and cash. And every book gets a free little postcard. We are also going to be doing photo permission forms. So my volunteers are going to pass out forms to you. If you don't want your child to be in any pictures, we will put a sticker on them so we don't take pictures of them. So please just let us know on the form. Otherwise, I'll be putting pictures on Twitter just to say what a great event this is and how great all of you are at the audience. So are we ready? Yeah, let's give a big round of applause for Cheryl.
And even though I wrote it, I think it's fair to say that it's a bit of a collective effort. So it wasn't just me. I wrote the book, and this lady on the left, this is Imogen Nicholas, she did the picture that you can see. Okay? And of course it was edited by Sonia Gilchrist at the back there. Okay? So it wasn't, even though I did write it, it wasn't just me, it wasn't a collective effort. So this is me. My name is Cheryl Diane Parkinson. I am an author. I'm also a teacher, but I teach big kids at secondary school. So I teach English literature and language for GCSE and A-level. I have Jamaican parentage, so even though I was born in the UK, I did spend some time living in Jamaica as well. So my mum and dad were both born in Jamaica, and we came here. My mum came here when she was 10. And my dad came here when he was 17, but I grew up here, and actually I grew up around this part of London, and I used to come to this library, although it was positioned on the other side, and I used to go to swimming baths over there, and I used to go to the college that was over there as well, so all of this is very local to me. As a writer, I like writing about people of colour and black people and making sure we have representation in books, and that's what I aim to do as a writer. This is my school. Hands up if you recognise where this school is, or anyone know this school. You recognise it? This is St Angela's Ursuline Convent School, and this is in Forest Gate, and this is the school that I went to. So I went there to GCSE Year 7 all the way through to Year 13. And what was special about this school is we were taught by nuns. So we had, at the time, Sister Una was the headmistress, Sister Alice used to play guitar, Sister Gabriel used to teach us French, and she was really scary, but she was a very good teacher. And I absolutely loved St Angela's. I used to call it my Hogwarts. So as I said, I was taught by nuns, but I also spent some time in Jamaica, and this is Bamboo Avenue in Jamaica, where I've driven down lots of times with my Uncle Galvin, my mum's brother. And I think spending some time in Jamaica, being taught by nuns, and I come from a female-dominated family, it helps me to generate the female voice that you can see in Last Girl In. So we've got a female protagonist, Kerry Ann, here, and we hear from her mum, and her nana is quite a strong character, and it's because I went to an all-girls school, so I was surrounded by girls all the time, and then of course we had the nuns, and then of course I've got 3 sisters, and my brother Kevin, but he doesn't really count as a boy. So we had a female-dominated home, and that is why I think I'm kind of more about the female voice when it comes to my writing. But in St Elizabeth, when I used to live in Big Bridge as well, and so we spent some time in sunny Jamaica, so I understand what it's like there, and I understand there's loads of insects and massive spiders and all these creepy crawlies that I was actually really scared of, but as an adult now, it was really quite interesting and different to the UK. These are some of the influences that I have when I was writing. Okay, so do we recognise any of these? Do we recognise any of these people?
You guys know this one? He's very famous.
No, but close, very close. That's Benjamin Zephaniah. He's the one who did that poem, Talking Turkeys. You know that one? And then this one on the left, that's Jason Reynolds. He's a bit newer, and he wrote a book called Ghost. He's written lots of books that are really good. And then Alex Wheatle here, who's one of my favourites. He did a very good book called Cane Warriors. And these, again, focus on children and young adults.
Alex Wheatle is going to do a special thing about Cane Warriors for us for Black History Month, so everyone keep an eye out for that. I will let you know.
Oh my gosh, I will come to that.
Yeah.
Thank you. I also have been lucky enough to study with this man here. This is Professor David Davide. He's a Guyanese-born broadcaster, novelist, poet and academic. And I did my master's degree. I've got a master's degree in literature, and I did my master's degree with him. And he was very hard on me, but he was really very good, and I feel very privileged to have been one of his students. I also have a doctorate, so I am a doctor, but my doctorate is in creative writing, because you have more than just medical doctors. When you go to doctors and they make you better and they give you medicine, you have different type of doctors as well. So I'm a doctor of literature, so I've got a doctorate in writing. And as a writer, I'm also concerned with equality and social justice. I think that's something that's come about with George Floyd. I think you lot are too young for George Floyd, but mums and dads and carers will remember George Floyd and the riots and things that went up around that. And as a writer, I am concerned with equality for all, representation, and being able to sort of make a level playing field and get our voices heard. So, Last Girl In. The inspiration behind it, this young lady here, this is my cousin Kerry Ann in Jamaica, and this is where I got the inspiration for the name Kerry Ann. Although my Kerry Ann doesn't so much like cricket, but she is a very sporty young lady. And this here is my mother, Monica, and she is inspiration for the character of Nana. Now really, even though the inspiration from Nana came from my mum, it also came from my grandmother, Ivorine, and my auntie Dawn, my mum's sister. And if you've read some of this and you see the bit where Nana is singing in church and she's got her hands raised up, that was my auntie Dawn with a really loud singing voice, and me and my sisters used to listen and giggle about it behind her back. And this is my dad. So my dad has passed away, and he passed away during the COVID era, although it wasn't of COVID. And this book is dedicated to my dad and Third Parkinson. And he used to talk to me a lot about what happened in London in the 50s. And one of the things that I liked when he talked to me about was the Teddy Boys. So when you're looking at in Last Girl In, Teddy Boys are in there. Now I'm old enough to remember a programme called Happy Days, and mums and dads and carers might remember that. And with Happy Days came the Teddy Boys and the Fonz, and it was always presented as really, really positive. But the story that my dad told was running away from Teddy Boys at night time when they'd go around the streets looking to basically attack black people. I also got, my dad had a love of cricket, and he loved the Windies, and every time the cricket was on, he'd make me and my sisters and my brother sit down and watch it for him with hours. But he also gave me a sense of belonging and a sense of ownership and a sense of pride with the cricket and being Caribbean British and belonging to London. And that's a general theme that we have going through Last Girl In as well. Now this is in St Elizabeth, and this is my mother's brother, his coffee farm, my Uncle Belvin. So I spent some time in Jamaica, as I said before, climbing trees, getting into loads of mischief, playing with all the animals and the goats and the cows and all those sorts of things. And one thing I really remember in Jamaica is the nicknames. So everybody had nicknames. So my granddad, his name was Siebert, and his nickname was Seabee. And his friends were Live Fry, Killer, and Trojan. They were, my granddad had a group of 4 friends, so they were real names belonging to my granddad and his friends. Limpin, he was our one-legged neighbour in Jamaica that was always in crutches limping around. So I have memories of Jamaica and all these nicknames, and all of these were inspiration for the little book Last Girl In. Historical context, I have added a little bit of extra because I'm a teacher and because I think books need to teach us things as well. So we learned, I think Kerry Ann spent some time, she landed herself in the Notting Hill race riots, which was a real thing that happened. Okay, and it was when black people were fighting for equality. You've got the Windrush generation as well, and they were fighting for their permanent, the idea that they belonged in London. So Kerry Ann, she actually learnt from her past. So by the end of the book, you see what going backwards in the past taught her. And she learnt that cricket belonged to her too, because cricket is an English game. But we all know that cricket belongs to West Indians as well, it belongs to Indians and Pakistanis as well. And she was proud of her heritage. And when she recognised that actually the London that she lived in, her family contributed to it, she contributed to it, she developed a better sense of belonging and ownership. And she was proud of herself and where she came from. So now what I want to do is I want to read a little bit of chapter 1 for you, just a little bit. So as I said, this is dedicated to my dad, Anserd Parkinson, who loved everything cricket and was a firm fan of the Windies. Chapter 1. Kerry Ann slid open the window and breathed in the crisp morning air. The street was empty. She eased out onto the ledge, one hand securing her position, the other pushing her glasses further up her nose. Her leg curled around the drain pipe and she slid to the ground. Kerry Ann, are you hearing me, girl? Mum's voice reached her from inside the house, but there was no way she was going to stop. She was out of there. Smiling triumphantly, she tiptoed around Mum's rose bush and then ran as quickly as she could, disappearing down the street. A minute later, she came to a road lined with stalls selling just about everything: clothes, furniture, fruit and veg. If you could think of it, there was someone here selling it for sure. The street market was noisy, crowded, and buzzing with life. Kerry Ann loved it. The air around her was sweetened with the aromas of cooking food, fresh pastries, ripe fruit, and it was alive with the sound blasting from the stalls. Bob Marley's voice reached her, wrapping her in the warmth of the Caribbean. She strolled, hands in pockets, through her home. Morning, Miss Kerry Ann. It was Mrs. Gooding, a friendly older woman who, for as long as Kerry Ann could remember, had made it her business to keep an eye on her. Kerry Ann waved, sidestepped an older dreadlock man as she continued down the street, humming along to Bob Marley as she went. The music made her feel great. Mrs. Goody looked over from her stall, which was stacked with bags, scarves and jumpers, and smiled as she watched her go. 10 minutes later, Kerry-Ann was walking out onto a wide open space, a fresh green cricket field. The sun broke through the clouds and, in her mind, Kerry-Ann filled the empty ground with spectators until there was not a single space free. She strode past the pavilion and heard imaginary crowds chatter as she approached the pitch. She could hear the commentator in her mind too. Kerry-Ann Taylor, fairly new to the game, talented player coming up to the crease. The whole game rests on what she does now. The pressure must be unbelievable. Kerry-Ann smiled and waved, acknowledging the fans. She heard a ripple of excited chatter. They had all come here for one reason, to see the girl who was fast becoming a legend, the next Ebony Rainford Brent. Prepare to see history in the making here today, the commentator continued. The crowd fell still. Kerry-Ann took a middle stump guard, then checked her stance. The bowler began their run-up, and she readied herself for the ball that would come flying at her at any moment now. Her lips making a narrow, stubborn line inside her helmet. Everyone was watching. And then her daydream evaporated. Hey, it was Amity, her best friend. Kerry-Ann grinned at him back in the real world. All right? Yeah, he nodded, bought my new ball, and he tossed it in the air, displaying it proudly. It's a Duke's. Kerry-Ann raised her eyebrows. Nice. Where'd you get it from? My dad thought I could try it out. Oh, yes. Kerry-Ann took the ball and sniffed it. It still had that new ball smell. Did you know, she said, that the first cricket ball was made of wool? Did you know it was one of the private games, a running joke between them? They'd been doing it for so long that Kerry-Ann had forgotten how it started. No way, gasped Amity. No way! Although, of course, he did know. And she knew that he knew, and he knew that she knew that he knew. Yeah, she continued. Shepherds made the game up to pass the time while guarding their sheep. Well, did you know that a cricket ball must weigh 163 grams exactly? Exactly! No way, she gasped. No way! Although she had told him this very fact the day before. Amazing. But now Amity was looking over her shoulder, and his smile vanished. Uh-oh, he muttered. There's a moose on the loose. That's it. Thank you very much.
Do we have any questions for Cheryl? I have a really big question. Did you always want to be a writer?
Yes. Ever since I was little, I wanted to be other things as well, like an astronaut. I also wanted to be a bin man, a teacher. So I wanted to be lots of things, but the one thing that stayed constant is I also wanted to be a writer, I guess.
Oh, excellent. Does anyone else write? I like to write. Who likes to write stories? Who likes to read stories? Yeah, so if you like to write and you like to read, you could also be a teacher and a writer, just like Cheryl. Do you think that reading a lot really helps you write well?
It does. I think it more than helps. You have to be a good reader in order to be a writer because you get inspired by different types of novels and books that you read. And they help with your vocabulary. We all know about vocabulary and putting those words inside our heads. Well, actually, if you're a good reader, those words go in your head without you even noticing it. And then you just write using them without even noticing it. So it's your subconscious mind that gets it in. So that's how it helps with our writing. By reading everything or anything that interests you, and then it just comes out naturally in your writing. A bit like magic.
And what about when I was a kid, what I like to do is I like to write stories about myself and my favorite stories. Did you ever do that?
I did, and I wrote a science fiction story called Lanicro. It was the star of the book, and Lanicro is actually Cheryl spelled backwards.
That's very clever for a kid.
Yeah, I did like that one.
Yeah. Anybody else have any questions? Yeah, what's your question? Want to whisper it to me, and I'll say it. I think he just really wanted to raise his hand. Any other questions for Cheryl? Yeah, what's your question? Are you writing another book?
Yes, I am at the moment.
How many
Doesn't
books
a
have you
title
written?
yet. Oh, I've written about 4 now, 4 or 5.
Does it take a long time to write a book?
Well, I don't find it actually takes me a long time to write the book itself. It's the redrafting and the polishing, and you chuck things out, and that takes a long time.
Yeah, so the first time you write a story, it's not perfect, right? So you have to, you look at it and you look at all the little different things that you've done and you make it better. And when you're a
cut bits
professional,
out,
yeah.
add some new bits, change it around a little bit. You always change it. You don't just write a perfect version just like that.
What was your favorite book when you were a kid?
Oh, my favourite book when I was a kid is still my favourite book now, The Hobbit by Tolkien.
Ooh, who's read The Hobbit? You guys are all kind of little. Yeah, have you seen the movie The Hobbit? Yeah.
It's got dragons in it, it's got trolls in it, it's got orcs in it, it's got all sorts of stuff. All the stuff that I loved as a kid. And trees, I always like trees and climbing trees.
Is anyone here a cricket fan? Yeah? A couple. Oh, you're a cricket fan. What's your favorite team? Don't know? Do you play cricket?
I haven't played cricket for years. I used to play with my dad.
Oh.
Because my dad's passed away now, they're married, but it was my dad that taught me how to play cricket on the East London streets, actually, in Forest Gate.
And Forest Gate. Wow. Yeah. Did you have to do a lot of research? Did you have to look up a lot of stuff about cricket, or is it because you played cricket you were good at writing about cricket?
No, I think writing about it and playing it are two different things. So I did have to do some research. I had a friend actually at school, Mr. Sargent at my school, who was a really big fan of cricket. He used to help me with it, of course, and of course Sonia and I did help me as well, just to get that cricket bit from
Yeah. Oh, you have a question? What's your question? Your favorite author?
Ah, my favourite, well that's a hard one because I've got a few. I like Toni Morrison, and she's a very adult author, and she's American. But I also like Robin Hobb. Robin Hobb writes about dragons and, yeah, just dragons. I'm such a huge fan of dragons.
Would you ever write a book about dragons?
I'm hoping to.
Ooh, that's exciting. I also really like dragons. I also love The Hobbit.
Yeah, cool. Smaug is the best.
Yeah. Do we have any other questions?
What's your favorite book that you write?
My favourite book that I've written, I think it changes. So it's always the ones that I'm writing at the moment. So at the moment, I like this one because of my dad, and my dad's not long ago passed away. And so it just reminds me of my dad, and then Nana reminds me of my mum, and then of course Stevie is my granddad, and Kerry Ann is my cousin Kerry Ann, and that's why this one is a favourite, because I've got a lot of my family members, you know, inspired it. But my very first novel, I wrote a book called Naya, and that one is a firm favourite as well.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. Who likes to write their own family into stories? Yeah, I remember when I was a kid, I was really mad at my sister. My sister's called Megan, like Meghan Markle. And I wrote a really mean story called Mr. Megan because I was so mad at her. I think my mom still has that.
Good one.
What's your question?
Say that again? I used to like Enid Blyton, although I know that Enid Blyton's not so around so much now, but I did like Enid Blyton, and again, I used to like Tolkien. It was when I was at, not far from here, there's a school in Forest Gate called St James, and my teacher, Mr Cairns, introduced me in Year 6 to The Hobbit, and it was when I was about 10 that I started reading The Hobbit, and I've read it many, many, many times since then.
Have you seen the movie?
Oh, several times. Got the extended version as well. But I do like J.K. Rowling, Harry Potter. That's great.
Oh, we have a question from the little one right there. You have a question? What's your question? Well, I think Shirley said her favorite book, which is The Hobbit, and the favorite book that she's written is The Last Girl In. What about when you were little? What was your favorite book?
I used to like the enormous, you know that caterpillar that eats through everything?
Oh, The Hungry
The
Caterpillar.
very hungry caterpillar.
Yeah.
And there was one about turnips. I like the enormous turnip. That's a very
Enormous
old one. I
turnip.
don't think they make it. But the hungry caterpillar, I used to read that all the time.
Oh, excellent.
My daughter reads that as well, actually.
When you write stories, how do you write stories? Do you sit down and you just write a story, or do you think about it a lot and you plan every little bit?
Well, first I just write a story, and then when I run out of ideas, then I start to plot it. and then I start, and they act like a signpost, and then I just make sure that I can write the whole thing, and then I go back at each chapter and make sure that it all connects up and your threads are connected and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so writing takes a lot of work.
It's a process. It's a process.
Yeah. Should we do you want to read another chapter? Well, so before everyone's attention leaves us. So guys, we're going to read another chapter of the book.
Let's see. Don't want to go too far. Let's see. Chapter 5. I think it's one of my favourite chapters.
Okay, so everyone, we're going to do one more chapter.
Okay, this is chapter 5. Kerry Ann heard footsteps in the passageway, slow and deliberate. Grandpa was coming. His face lit up as soon as he saw her. "Is how me best girl?" "I'm good, Grandpa." Kerry Ann jumped up to hug him, then made room for him on the sofa. Nana went out to make tea, and Kerry Ann asked Grandpa how he was. So, my leg hurting just here, me tired. But it's good to see you. What you been up to?" "Lots. Good stuff. But Grandpa, I've got a problem. The cricket thing." He nodded. "Tell me." So she did. Not everything, but the main point. That she had a really important game that she needed to win. "Are the teams good?" She nodded. "Better than you?" "Maybe. I haven't played against them, but they're good." He thought for a moment, and his face creased into a gentle smile. "That is half the trick, you see. You have to think you is good enough. You have to believe it." He tapped his finger on his forehead. "Cricket is played off of the pitch. They played in here, you see." She nodded. "When you step up to the crease, you against the whole team. You understand? You and your batting partner against the whole 11. He lowered his voice. "But it also you against yourself, Kerry Ann. If you win the battle in your head, if you focus all your energy on that ball, you can hit a 6 every time." He smiled. "Oh, at least a 4. Kerry Ann beamed back at him. She did get it. She knew exactly what Grandpa was talking about. You have to practice as well. Me and my friends used to practice all the time. You practice with your team? Every chance, Grandpa." She nodded. "Good. That is good." Nana returned and set down the tea. "Thank you," said Grandpa. "Tell the story then, Nana." So Nana carried on. CB crouched low to look at the goat. "Miss Rosabelle, I got dead ya." The little girl in the tree gloated. "Are you one of her sons? She has enough picnic them." CB considered running away, but the girl had seen him. She'd probably easily find out where he lived and tell Miss Rosabelle. He picked up the ball that had killed the goat. It was his cricket ball. His fault. He didn't know this girl, but she looked the kind of kid to tell on him and his friends. Killer strode up. He looked at the goat, at CB, then looked back at the dead goat. "What are you going to do?" CB looked at him and shrugged his shoulders. "I don't know, man." His voice trembled. He wished his big brother was here. Ansad would know what to do. Coughing to disguise his tears, he turned away so Killer and the girl wouldn't see. "You better decide fast," a little voice piped up from the trees. Killer turned his face towards the branches. "Hyacinth, that's you?" He peered up towards the little girl. "What happened, Killer?" "What you do up there?" "You go watch the game. You know having to like cricket, so?" "Yeah, man, but the game would have been here, so you know," he explained. The little girl nodded her head in agreement. CB looked incredulously from his friend to the girl as they chatted casually, as if Miss Rosabelle's dead goat wasn't lying at their feet. If Miss Rosabelle found out what had happened, his life would not be worth living. He considered leaving the goat where it was, but there was already a fly buzzing round it. Mrs. Rosabelle would discover it dead, and she would come to bring it home. But then, when she soon found out about the game, and Mrs. Rosabelle was fearsome, she would cuss him out in front of everyone. She had a stick that she kept in her veranda for boys that dared to cheek her, and she was not afraid to use it. He sighed heavily. He didn't want to face Miss Rosabelle, and he definitely didn't want to face her sons. He was stuck. The small girl blinked down at him from the perch, understanding his predicament. He wanted to leave, to run away like everyone else. "What are you going to do?" the girl asked again. She looked down at him, waiting to see. He shrugged and turned and began his long, lonely walk towards Miss Rosabel's house to face his fate. Above him, 2 black dots wheeled lower. The John Crows had started to circle.
What do you think is the message of the story?
The message of your story is firstly that girls can play sports and girls can play cricket and girls can do anything that they want to do. But also it's about belonging and ownership and knowing who you are and understanding your roots and understanding how that makes you a better person and also understanding your role in society and how you belong.
Oh wow, very deep story. What is the age group for the story?
So we're looking at middle grade, I think 9 to 12, 13.
So some of you can look forward to reading that one day. I think some of us are very little, but that's okay. Do we have any more questions for Cheryl? You still have a question? No, he's thinking about it. Well, in that case, if we don't have any questions, Cheryl will be right here if you want to buy a book or if you just want to say hi to her. She's going to be right, be right here. Let's give her one more round of applause. She was so